Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a really fascinating linguistic detective story. We're looking at source material that proposes an absolutely wild theory. What if the earliest inventors of written Chinese deliberately preserved the history of the early world, specifically the events around the Tower of Babel, right inside their writing system? Let's check it out. So could a 4,000-year-old script actually hide the history of the world? Our source material poses this exact mystery, asking if ancient sages purposely encoded Genesis into their written language. The theory goes that after the Great Flood, humanity shared just one language, all gathered together in the Valley of Shinar. Then, supposedly the ancestors of the Chinese people migrated east from that exact spot, carrying word-of-mouth knowledge of those early events. And here's the kicker. The source claims they deliberately baked that history straight into the very characters they invented to communicate. To set the stage, the source points out a pretty surprising detail about population growth that gives us our first clue. After the flood, there was this massive population boom, and the typical generation time drastically shortened from those super long lifespans you hear about with the early patriarchs down to just about 30 years. And what's wild is that when the Chinese language was forming, this 30-year generation was just a known fact of life. Think about the Chinese character for age or generation. It is literally built using the symbol for the number 30. It's written as 3 tens on a baseline. The source argues this is not just random. It's an actual historical demographic fact recorded directly into the word. Now, before we get into the heavy evidence, we really need to understand how this encoding even works. Chinese is heavily made up of ideograms. That basically means we can dissect these characters almost like Lego pieces to reveal the core concepts hiding inside. These smaller picture pieces are called radicals. You don't just memorize a shape, you combine foundational ideas to create a brand new, complex meaning. And the source suggests that by breaking apart these ancient characters into their base radicals, we can literally read the historical narrative left behind by the inventors. Okay, so let's talk about how the author deconstructs the character for tower. This is where it gets really interesting. One of the base radicals is for dirt or clay, which of course is exactly what early bricks were made of. Then, think about the other conceptual pieces making up the word. We have mankind, one, and mouth, which together literally translate to people of one speech. When you put all of that together with the radicals for united and undertake, the whole character spells out this incredibly vivid story. Mankind of one speech, united together to undertake the building of a structure out of clay. And this perfectly mirrors the Genesis account, right? Where mankind, speaking one language, united to build a giant structure out of baked clay. Now, the text makes a really great point here. The ancient Chinese didn't even build towers or pagodas until way later during the Buddhist era. So you have to ask, why would their fundamental ancient word for tower describe a clay structure built by a united people of one language? According to the source, this character is basically a direct historical shorthand for the Tower of Babel. But it definitely doesn't end there. According to this analysis, the character for rebellion captures the exact consequence of the Tower of Babel. The source notes that building the tower was seen as this ultimate act of united defiance. And the biblical response to that defiance? Confounding their single language, causing utter confusion and completely halting construction. Amazingly, the Chinese character representing this event means both confusion and rebellion. Let's break it down and see how it mirrors that exact moment in history. So, the source points out that rebellion is written by combining just two distinct pictures, a tongue and a right leg. Think about the metaphor for a second. The tongue represents speech, or language, the very thing that was confused at Babel. And the right leg is depicted as extended, like it's walking or striking out. The visual significance is pretty clear, according to the text. When their languages were confused, they literally couldn't understand each other well enough to keep building. All they could do was strike out on a journey. Speech plus walking equals the confusion and rebellion of Babel. From there, let's explore how this builds into the broader division of the earth. Because of this massive language confusion, humanity was scattered. The text brings up the biblical figure Peleg. His very name meant division because, well, in his days, the earth was divided. The source argues this was such a monumental milestone in history that the Chinese actually fashioned several ideograms corresponding directly to this exact incident of human dispersion. The author notes that the character for division uses a knife, a symbolic dividing tool, acting upon the number 8. In this historical context, 8 represents the original ancestors who survived the flood: Noah, his wife, their 3 sons, and their wives. So from these 8 people stems the entire divided future population. On top of that, the character for scatter or disperse combines all flesh, meaning families, with to follow, and the number 4. So it's basically saying all families followed their diverse paths, scattering 4 directions. Following these newly divided families, the source suggests that the character for migration is actually a retrospective map of their journey. Just imagine you're part of this massive dispersion, heading eastward toward the fertile land of China. How would you record that epic migration for future generations? Well, the source claims they concisely summarize the whole event using 4 specific radicals. Let's see how this complex character comes together to form a literal map in ink. When you break apart the migration ideogram, it reads almost like a step-by-step timeline of Babel. First, you have the radical for great, combined with a division. And this great division takes place in the west, which, if you're looking from the perspective of China, is exactly where the Valley of Shinar and Babel were. Finally, this great division in the west results in the radical for walking. So, to migrate literally translates to, a great division in the west caused us to start walking. It is a really incredible assertion that their own geographic origins are hidden right there in their daily writing. And there's more. The source highlights a second, older form of the migration character that adds yet another layer to all this. This alternate form simply shows 1,000 and walking. A massive multitude of people, maybe the greatest mass dispersion the Earth has ever seen, all set into motion, walking away from each other. Synthesizing all of this, the study points to a really fascinating thematic link. The source argues that the ancient Chinese forebears summarized the 3 great rebellions of early mankind, Eden, the Flood, and Babel, by including the exact same radical in the characters associated with their consequences. That radical is united as one. Think about it. Adam and Eve united to defy God and faced the flaming sword. The pre-flood world united in corruption and faced the drown of the flood. Mankind united in defiance to build the Tower of Babel. In the characters for sword, drown, and tower, that exact same radical for united as one confederacy is starkly visible. So, what does this all mean? Well, the crucial takeaway from this explainer is just the sheer wonder of linguistics. Whether you view these alignments as an astonishing historical record carefully preserved by ancient scribes, or you just see it as an incredible string of linguistic coincidences, the source material definitely presents a truly captivating perspective on the origins of human writing. It really makes you wonder, what other forgotten histories and ancient secrets might be hiding right in plain sight, locked within the letters and words we use every single day? Keep asking questions, keep looking closely, and we'll see you in the next explainer.